Without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Marian Deeney.
Good morning, everyone. Everybody, I think, knows me at this point from the emails and webinars and what have you. I'm Marian Deeney, Library Program Administrator here in the Bureau of Library Development. We are gathered here this morning to talk about the State Aid to Libraries grant application, which everyone is anxiously awaiting. First thing to note with the application, the deadline for submission of your applications is October 1. October 1 is a Sunday. I can tell you for a fact there will be no one here Saturday or Sunday. You can wait to make that deadline, but I would strongly suggest you look at the 29th before submitting it before that deadline, just in case there's any problems. The applications this year will be submitted on our new Department of State grant system. Melissa, have you already? And you should be seeing the homepage of the Department of State grant system on your screens right now. The web address is www.dosgrants.com. It's the same place for those of you that applied for LSTA grants or construction grants. It's the same location. This is the new Department of State grant system where all the divisions that do administer grants are working on the same grants platform. What we have done for you is we have set up all of the libraries, the public libraries that receive state aid funding. We have set you up in the system. We have also set up the library directors as well as key staff that we know have worked on state aid grants in the past. We've already set you up with your username and a login, and so you should be good to go. If you, as we had said to you earlier, don't worry about the emails you've been getting from us. So now it's time to start doing things. The first thing you will do when you're ready to log in would be to go over here to the upper right-hand corner where it says forgot your password. If you click on that and put your email into the system, it will then send you your login. Your login is your email, and it'll send you a link to reset your password to whatever you so choose to do that.
Do you want to be presented?
Okay. So you will see this part of the you'll see this once you've logged in, once you said forgot my password. We will then go and log into the system. You can log in up here. And then once you log in, you'll get to your home page. And let me do that very quickly. Now, since I am doing a lot of things on the system, my, of course that happens. Okay, this is the home page for the once you have logged into the system. There are various notifications that will post, upcoming events and things over here, such as the state aid deadline, and then assignments, which you really won't see at this point, and then other messages. To get to your application, you can go up here and click on Apply for Grant and go to the state aid. You'll already see one that has been started for you. Or the easiest way is to go to My Grants, and an application will have been started for you. You should see it to be able to get to the state aid application. I want to say thank you to Broward County, who's allowing me to use their application as the VANA for this morning. So I'm going to step through using Broward County's application. You can see what this will look like. This is the home page of the state aid application. On the left here, you'll have a navigation bar that will help you see where you have been what you have done in the application, what you have completed, what you still have to complete as well, and you can use this navigation bar to jump to any of the sections. The application is set up so that you can go page by page by page, but if you just need to go to one section or another, you can jump directly to those sections using the links. Now you will see that some of these sections have a check mark beside them. What that means is that that section of the application has been completed or had enough information provided to meet any of the validation checks that will allow you or prevent you from submitting the application. Even with the check, you can go back and edit any information. I'm not saying that the information is correct or not. That will be done as part of our review, but at least there is information in there that will let you submit the application. So what we're going to do is just step through each of the parts of the application. You will notice that a lot of this looks very similar to what was done using Florida Libraries and Grants. The new system does not have the prior year applications. However, you can log into Florida Libraries and Grants and access your prior year application if you do need to get to that information for some reason. There is also, once you've filled out your information, a print preview button up here that will open up another window, and you can see what you have entered into the application or what documents you have uploaded, so that if you need that, you can get to that. That is working. Took care of a little problem yesterday related to that. Also, I just want to mention too, as this is a new system, we have been testing it 60 ways to Sunday, but with all of you working on it, I know someone is going to find something that we haven't hit. At any time when you're working on the applications or trying to log in or trying to add staff to the applications, if you have any problems at all, please feel free to contact me. You can contact Catrice Stewart, who has been working with getting the library information and login information set in. We've all been working as a team on this, as well as David Beach, who has been working on this as well. So the first page of the application is the applicant information. The first part of this here is filled in from the organization page of the application. And that's already been set up for you. If information needs to be updated, you can update that information. The director's name, the library's director's name is here. You can choose that from any staff that have been added to the system for the library. The project manager is the person we will be doing all of our contacts with for the application, sending payment information, etc. It can be the library director. It does not have to be the library director. Again, you can select that person from that pull down of the library staff that are there in the library system that have been added. You will choose the library type, single county library such as Broward County, municipal library, for example, Riviera Beach, North Palm Beach, someone like that. County participating in a multi-county library, an example of that would be Franklin County, Wakulla County, Jefferson County. And then the multi-county library would be the headquarters of the multi-county system, such as the Wilderness Coast Public Libraries. Then you would also check, is the library in its first 2 years of operation? This should be at a no, and at this point, no one should have to change that from a no. And then you can, at any point in time, you can save that section, which is what I'm going to do here, and it will just save it. Or you can click next, and it will take you to the next section of the application. And while we're waiting on that, so I'll go ahead and click next. While we wait, any questions at all on that first page? That's pretty straightforward.
Would East Lake Community Library be considered a municipal library since we are in an unincorporated area?
East Lake Community Library applies as part of the Pinellas Public Library Cooperative. You would not be applying separately for this program. You would be applying as part of the cooperative.
And Jeff says, will interlocal agreements and contracts transfer from the old system?
Yes, hopefully. To clarify that, we migrated the data from Florida Libraries and Grants into all of the applicable sections. We did do quite a bit of spot checking, but I personally have not looked at each and every document. So I need to ask everyone to check all of the documents that are already in the system for you. Check them all very carefully to be sure that it is the correct document for your library, that it's in the right place, that it is the most current document as applicable, to be sure it's not something that's no longer valid, and that type of thing. And if it didn't transfer over, then you'll need to add that information, or we can help you get that over if we have that information. So we did try and make that as easy for you as we could, but I cannot guarantee 100% that it all worked perfectly. Okay? The next section here is the expenditure report, and this is going to look very familiar to everyone who has done the applications. There are various categories of funding down here: personnel, services, operating expenses, capital outlay that's non-fixed, in other words, capital outlay that is not physical construction of a building, and then any other expenses, as well as where the funding is coming from, whether it is local funding, state funding being state aid, grants, or any other state funding such as license tag fees, something of that nature, federal funding such as Federal Library Services and Technology Act grant funding, and then other would be any other type of funding that may come into your library. Typically, this would be funding, for example, something that was purchased or expenditures that were done on your behalf that were not made through the library's budget, so therefore they cannot count toward the state aid calculation. An example would be Friends of the Library who purchased something for you that did not go through the library's budget. So you would enter all of the appropriate amounts here as applicable. You can just type the number in and etc., and it will fill in for you. The arrows are just a default of the program. You probably will not need those because they do just go up and down one at a time, so that probably is not, you're not going to be using those. And then when you click save, it will do the totals over here at the right side. And the save is down here at the bottom. And it should do the total across, and it should do the total down as it's thinking. There we go. Oh, come on. Thank you. You can see the 10,000 is here.
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you enter Friends of the Library and other donations that do pass through the library's budget under local?
Yes, they would go under local. Everything that's in the local column is what is used to calculate your state aid grant amount. Local funds are any funds that have passed through the library's budget. If it's something that the county expended in another category, such as through public works or something like that, you cannot count that. But if it's expended through the public library's budget, it can be listed here and count. And that would include the library's budget and friends donations that come through the library's budget.
So any in-kind donations can be included in other?
Yeah, they just won't count toward, it's not a cash expenditure, so it can't count toward the state aid grant amount. Mm-hmm. This bottom line here, capital outlay, is for any funds that are used for the construction of a library. The actual bricks and mortar construction, which means this row here does not get counted towards your state aid calculation. Another question?
E-rate goes under federal, right?
If it's an E-rate check that you have gotten back, that is actually local funding. It has come back from the federal. It's not a grant from the federal government. It is a rebate or a refund from the federal government that comes to the library.
If the municipality uses books in a capital line item, would that expenditure go to capital outlay non-fixed?
Yes. Yes. And a capital outlay non-fixed is anything that you... The categories, the 10, 30, and 60 are standard state accounting categories that your cities and counties probably use. That's why we've had to split out capital outlay into non-fixed and fixed. Non-fixed capital outlay are things such as books, resources, could be library furniture, could be computers, all different things like that that are above that threshold that they would be considered capital outlay, but they are allowable for state aid. So they could go under that category, this category right up here. Yes. Any other? No? Okay. If you add, and this is to head off a lot of questions for those of you that have run into these questions back from me. If you add anything under the other column, if you would add specify or tell us what that is, such as friends donation that was not spent through the library's budget, that will help eliminate a lot of questions back and forth from us to you. If you'll just add that information in here. For this first year, as we always do, we always look back at what you reported last year for your local expenditures. We know it's never going to be, for the most part, the exact same number. Increases or decreases are perfectly okay.
Before we go on, can everybody hear us? It seems like, okay, it seems like the sound may be going in and out a little bit. That is an internet issue, I believe. It just may be that either in this building or in general there may be some bandwidth issues. I don't know if it's the weather or what's going on. If the sound goes out and stays out, let us know, and we can, obviously you guys will. I know you're good about that, but we'll try to be sensitive to that. But at this point, if it's a network, a bandwidth issue, there's not really much we can do about it.
Hang tight. Just keep letting us know. Okay, as I was saying, we always check every year, and we come back to the library and say, is this correct if your local expenditures have increased or if they have decreased by more than 10% from the previous year? Like I said, increases or decreases are perfectly okay, but we just want to come back and check with you to make sure that you didn't double count something by accident, forget to include a fund that you've included in prior years, things of that nature.
Expenditures for things like paint, repairs, fillers, filters, etc., that are paid by Public Works would be in local?
If they're paid by Public Works and not paid through the library's budget, they cannot count as local expenditures. We can have had long discussions. If you have issues with that, we have had discussions with libraries about making sure that those funds are included in the library's budget so that you get the full credit for that. So for this first year, everybody's going to have a percentage difference of 100%. So you are going to get this question right here. If you would just put first year application, that's all I need, and that'll be enough to let you submit. And because I will be checking to see what I'll be going back and comparing to what was submitted last year. So I will be checking that offline. But just to let us submit the application, just go ahead and put first year application in here, first year in the new system or something to that effect, and that will take care of that problem. Okay? All right, the next section will be the certification of the expenditures. While we wait, there we go. The certification of expenditures is the same as in the past. You'll see the certification here. We need you to download the certification form. It will open up in a separate page, just like it has done in the past. You need to have completed the expenditure report before you download this form, because it does pre-fill the amount of expenditures you are certifying. It also pre-fills the library name. Have that signed, and then upload the form here, and then you're good to go in that regard. Okay. The next section is the designation of the single library administrative unit. And in these next several sections here, the designations, the single library administrative unit, the governing body authority, or the interlocal agreements or contracts to establish the library. Many times folks will have one document that includes all of those things. And so we've made the provisions that if it's in one section, you just have to upload it one time, note that it's included in another section, and then you can add the notes and just tell us what section it's in. In this case here for Broward, they have a document that was the establishment of the countywide library system that did cover all of those things, and so that translated over from the previous application cycle. And this is where you are basically, for libraries that have been established for many, many years, we know that you are a single library administrative unit. There's nothing new to be done here. A lot of this documentation already exists, or we have grandfathered you in with the existing documentation of the establishment of your library system. With a lot of the newer libraries that have come in more recent years to the state aid program, they have a resolution that they have passed that spells out all of these designations. Again, that's perfectly acceptable. The documentation line does allow you to add multiple documents, so you're not limited to one document. You would just add the next document here and then upload it. If for some reason this was not the correct document, you would click the delete button check the delete button and then click delete file, and it will go away for you. And if you have anything else you need to add about that, you can add that in here. The notes are there just for your convenience if you need to add any comments. You do not have to put anything in the notes field. Next section is the designation of a governing body. Same type thing. This is telling us who the governing body of the library is. And come on, thank you. And in this case here, the Broward County has put a number of things where they put the county administrative codes for things that here related to the library that shows that there is a governing body, etc. Some folks will give us an org chart showing who the governing body is, Board of County Commissioners, the City Council, what have you. Most of these documents we did transfer over from Florida Libraries and Grants, so they should be here. Just check to be sure that we've got the right things in the right places.
Okay, I've got a question. I believe I heard Marian say that you could get your application via Grants. My Grants is in the menu bar. Just wanted to say this is not where I found mine. It was under Grants, my organization applications.
Okay. Oops.
Vicky.
Okay, it's there. Sometimes as you log in, there are some slightly different views, and I apologize because I can only get in this one way, and that for your outside view, it may look slightly different. Either way, you can go to My Organization to the grant. You can go to Apply for Grant to get to that. If you have any trouble finding it, let me know. But from what I've heard from folks that have already been into the system, they have been able to find it without too many challenges there. Let's see. Come on. Waiting for the next section to load here, which is again the verification of the governing body. And if everything is correct that we've loaded, you would just click one of the buttons, no changes, or included in another section. In this case, I'm assuming that those previous documents that were in the section of the designation of the governing body included this information, that the governing body has the authority to do these things. So you would just check included in another part of the section and just say included in the designation of governing body section.
And Todd says, same here, not listed under Apply for Grants or My Grants. And then Holly says, both the certification form and the grant agreement have a section for typed name, but if you do not have full Adobe,
you can print it. You can print off the document, just handwrite it in. That's perfectly okay. Okay, if your library has any interlocal agreements or contracts that are done to establish the library, for example, one of the multi-county public library cooperatives, there's an interlocal agreement that sets up the cooperative, you would include that here in this section. In this case, for Broward County, our Vanna here, they have a number of agreements with some of the communities in the county to use the facilities, and they've included those here within the as part of the application. For libraries that are members of a public library cooperative, where the documentation is met at the public library cooperative level, the multi-county headquarters level, I have already added notes to your application, which means you do not need to add anything in there. If it says met at the multi-county cooperative level, you do not need to go and get a copy of the interlocal agreement and add it to your application. That's already been covered at the headquarters library. So let's see. The next section is the position description of the single administrative head. And you would add, we have migrated the position descriptions over. You need to please check to be sure that it is the most current position description for the director's position. We have some in here that I know are 10 or 15 years old, and I am willing to bet there may be something more current available. You just need to go ahead and check that, please. If there's no change, that's fine, but just double check that to be sure that it is the most current. And if it's not, you can delete what's there and add the documents in as applicable. And so that's for the position description. Again, with this document, for the multi-county public library cooperative members, this is met at the single administrative head level, so you do not need to add anything here for the member library directors. The certification of credentials of the single administrative head. This is the document that certifies that the single administrative head meets the various requirements by the program, that they have employed by the single administrative unit, completed the library education program, 2 years of paid professional experience after the degree, open in a library that's open for a minimum of 40 hours a week, etc. The certification form is the same as the other certification form. You would just download it, and it will open up in Word. And while that's opening up, the whole system just locked up. I think we're having some network issues here. Bear with us. I'm waiting for something to happen, and I can't do anything.
Well, we'll give it a minute. Does anybody have any questions in the meantime?
Yeah.
We do have a question. If a position is vacant, are there any other documents required? Presume we send credentials of the interim director.
You do not. The interim director does not have to meet the credentials requirements. It could be anybody that's designated as the interim director. As we know, there's a position's vacant. We do send the governing body a letter saying, tell us what's happening with the status of filling the position, and we will, if you've not replied back to us, we need the information of what's happening there, and then we can fill that for you. We know what. Just tell us what the status is of filling that position, and then we'll be able to go from there. Okay, we're doing some little technology here to see what happens. All right, we're doing a little quick maneuvering here, so bear with me for just a second.
We are playing musical computers.
Okay. Okay, we're back. Okay, we're back. Sorry for that technical interruption. I have no idea what just happened. So anyway, as we were doing a moment ago, you would open up the certification of credentials. If it's already been completed, we've migrated that one over. So in this case, there's just been a new director hired in Broward County recently, so they will need to update and provide a new certification of credentials to replace the document that's already here.
And Vicki says some of the already uploaded files can be viewed without issue, but not all.
Okay, let us know if you're having any problems, and we will try and reload them again. And if not, we will have to ask you all to help reload them. We did try and migrate them as clean as we could, but sometimes we had some dirty documents on our end that just did not translate well either. But we'll help you however we can to get those loaded. Okay. All right, the next section then is the schedule of library hours. And this is where you're going to upload whatever documents that show that at least one library, branch library, or member library is open to the public at least 40 hours per week. If you would load that up, we will, because this document is used as part of your grant payment request, so we just need you to give us a current schedule of library hours. I know there's a couple in here that maybe when the stuff moved over that were a few years old, so you need to double check that to be sure that that is your most current schedule that is in here.
We've got a question.
Okay.
Related to hours, if the library's hours will be expanding starting October 1st, 2017, that would be reported in the 2018 state aid report only, right?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
If they change their hours starting October 1st, 2017,
Right?
would that be reported in the 2018 state aid report
Yes,
only?
you should load those hours up, yes.
So they would do that reported in 2018?
No, they would, if it's starting October 1, 2017, load that new schedule as part of your application. And for libraries that are in a multi-county public library cooperative, it only takes one library in the whole system to do that. And again, that information is loaded at the cooperative headquarters application, so you do not have to load that into your individual application sections. The next section is the long-range plan. And this plan needs to cover a 3 to 5 year period. And it needs to include the current upcoming year, the 17-18 fiscal year. And it has to be approved by the library's governing body. It can be approved by the advisory board in addition to being approved by the governing body, but the requirement is that it must be approved by the library's governing body. The dates covered by the plan, we do ask that you add the dates into the application here that are covered by your long-range plan, and then upload the documents for the long-range plan. You may have multiple documents such as the plan and then the approval by your governing body, whatever you need to do to load those documents in there. If it has already been approved and it's still in effect, just add the dates covered by the plan and we're good to go there. And some of the data, this field here, dates covered by the plan, is a new field that has not existed before, so you may see the dates covered by the plan down here in the notes as well. And if you could just add those up here into the dates covered by the plan, that would be fantastic. Okay. And then we're going to go over to the next section then, which is the interlocal agreements for library services. This section here is only for any additional interlocal agreements that the library may have that are in place to provide library services. This does not include the interlocal to establish the library. Things that might be included in here might be things such as reciprocal borrowing agreements between other counties that are not part of your administrative unit, neighboring county interlocal agreements, things of that nature, anything that you might have. There are many libraries that don't have any other interlocal agreements, but if you do, please load them up here. The next section is the verification of reciprocal borrowing, and this, along with the verification of the joint planning, these two items are required for all of the libraries that are within counties that have both a countywide library system and independent municipal libraries within that county, such as Orange County, which has Orange, Maitland, and Winter Park, Seminole County, which also has Altamont Springs, Palm Beach County, Broward County, Miami-Dade County, Lee County, and Pasco County, I believe, are all of the counties and municipal libraries in those counties that are affected by these requirements. Any other libraries, these are not applicable to you. In setting up the applications, I believe I went through and did click those that were not applicable, so that should already be checked in your application. In this case here with Broward County, as there are independent municipals within the county, they will need to provide this documentation.
Question. If only names of library board members have changed, does the current active long-range plan need to be approved again?
If only library...
So the names of the library board members have changed? Those are the only changes made? Do they have to reapprove the long-range plan?
No, no. The long-range plan is approved by your governing board, such as your city commission or your board of county commissioners, or your governing board if it's a multi-county. If people have changed, that was approved by the members that were on the board at that point in time, that's fine. That does not have to be updated.
And Gary Earl says Lake County has Eustis. And
right. Eustis does not receive state aid, so that this requirement does not apply to Lake County. at such point, if Eustis would choose to start receiving state aid, then yes, this requirement would apply to you, but for right now, it does not apply to Lake County.
And Mary Soto says, can updates be made to the long-range plan before it expires? And would that modify the expiration date? If we have a plan for fiscal year 17 through 19, can we update in fiscal year 18?
Absolutely. You can do that if you do the updates, and as part of those updates, you choose to modify the dates covered by the plan. That plan would have to be approved by your governing body. But yes, that's perfectly okay, perfectly allowable. We have had libraries in the past. We cannot extend the dates from the state library, the dates of your long-range plan. So libraries have amended or modified their plan for 1 year until they can get a full planning process in place. So yes, that's perfectly okay. Okay. So reciprocal borrowing, you must, the county and any of the independent municipal libraries that receive state aid, you must provide reciprocal borrowing to all residents of that within that county that receive operating grants. So that would be the county and any of the municipals. We would need documentation of that. And then the next section is the verification of joint planning. And that means that all of these libraries, the municipals, independent municipals, and the county have met at some point and done some form of joint planning. And this information can all be provided in one document, 2 separate documents. It's just depends upon how you all choose to do that. And we don't say what the joint planning has to be, but it's basically the library has engaged in joint planning for the coordination of library services within the county that receives the state aid, the operating grants. And things that have been done in the past have been youth services, staff training, and other things of that nature. It's as much as you all want to do on that section. Okay, and the last section that's due by October 1 is the grant agreement. And I am waiting for that to load as we speak. And this time I am not going to open the agreement. The agreement you do need to download the agreement. I'm going to go ahead and open it. This opens as a PDF. And it will merge information from the application, such as the governing body, the library name, etc., and other information in the grant agreement. It's very similar to the grant agreements that you've seen in the past. The deliverables have been changed a little bit from last year, but this is all documentation that is coming in as part of your application. We will pull that information to submit that for your grant payment.
Gary says, are M and N related? In other words, if M does not apply, N doesn't apply either?
Correct.
And Jeff says October 1st or December 1st.
For the grant agreement is due October 1st. Now, we know this year we've had some challenges with some timing in getting this new system up and running. If you all run into problems trying to schedule your to get your grant agreement and or your certification on a commission meeting, we do understand that. You would just need to put a document in here that says it is in the process of being signed. Once you have that signed agreement, we can unlock the application for you, and then you can upload that signed agreement. The biggest thing is, do not, I'm saying this in all capital letters, do not miss the application submission deadline of October 1. If you miss that deadline, there is absolutely nothing we can do. I cannot emphasize that enough. We can work with you if you get an application submitted, you get documents submitted. We can work with you in case there's a signature missing or something's not complete, but you cannot miss that grant application deadline. Okay? Once you get down here through section O, I'm going to jump down here to this last section. We'll come back and cover these remaining sections in a minute. At any point, if you think you are ready to submit your application, you can come down here to the Review and Submit section. And what the system will do is it's running a whole bunch of validation checks. All these things on the left here that are checked, they're good to go. Anything that's not, you'll see an error message. You will see it on this page, and you will also see it wherever the information is here. For example, where I was showing you earlier, I left that field blank about the increase or decrease in the state aid. You must check some of the information, uploading a grant agreement, etc. And you can click on these and it will take you to that section where the error is. This should jump me right to the long-range plan, and you need to enter the date there. So it is doing some double checking for you. Once, as you correct that problem, let's see if I can. Oops, it jumped a little bit on me here. Hang on just a second. Isn't technology fun sometimes? So that now when I do that, the error message will have gone away. And we should be able to come down here to the review and submit, and you'll see that that one has gone away if everything works properly. So you can see that that one item about the dates has now gone away. So once you get rid of all of these things here, any of these errors, then you are ready to submit your application. You have to certify that you are the person making this application, and you will type your name in here, and then you will submit the application. I am not a designated submitter for Broward County, so I right now cannot submit the application. If you are a designated submitter, this box will not be grayed out. If you are just an application editor, you cannot submit the application. If a library director wishes to change that designation and give somebody else permission in addition to the director to be able to submit the application, you can do that by going to the Manage Staff option under the library organization. And we can help you with that if you have problems in that area. These are all the documents, A through O, that must be submitted by October 1. There are 4 additional items that are due by December 1, which is the secondary application deadline. If you happen to have any of them ready and want to submit them before October 1, you can. You do not have to. We'll have everything back open for you to be able to keep working on that. The annual plan of service is a companion document to your long-range plan. This tells us what you are going to do during this year. If you have a brand new long-range plan that has just gone into effect this year, you can use your long-range plan as the annual plan of service for the first year of your long-range plan. And you would just indicate where it is and just check here and say it's included in the long-range plan, and we will go back and double-check everything. The next section is the library's budget. One thing while it's jumping off of this page, the annual plan of service must be approved by the library's governing body, so be sure you include that approval as well. Lots of times we have libraries that have their annual plan of service as a part of their budget documents. That's okay. That all must be approved by the library's governing body, and you can indicate if it's just one document that covers both of those things, you would add the budget. Budget documents, if your budget is a massive document, for example, such as Broward County's usually is, you can do just the sections for the county, for the library itself. You do not have to have the complete document. At least have the sections for the library as well as approval of that budget document. The next section is the summary financial report. And this is the one that causes everybody lots of challenges as we work on the application. The summary financial report is where you will be reporting to us how you have expended your state aid grant funds from each year of your grant award. The first 2 documents are your estimated budgets for the upcoming years so that we will be able to estimate your state aid grants. And you'll put those amounts in. These are typically the unaudited figures. The 15-16 is definitely unaudited figures because that has just closed out. 14-15 is may or may not have been audited yet. Give us those amounts. The Part C is the fun part. If you are required to report every year on each year of state aid grant funding you have received until it has all been expended. So first word of advice, spend your older money first. If you have dribs and drabs of prior year funding, I would highly recommend that you spend that out first, and then that leaves you with much less to report on. You still have the same dollar amounts, it's just all in one lump sum. You need to add Part C for your grant to report on the grant expenditures. You will need to do a separate Part C for each grant you are reporting on. For example, 2015 to 2016 grant funds, and you would tell us how much was expended for personnel, what the funds were used for, and what the specific service improvement that expenditure of funds for personnel was used for. You can report on personnel, library materials, equipment and furniture, automation and technology, and anything else related to the use of those state aid funds. So you report whatever amounts are appropriate and give us information in both of those. And then when you click, and then if you have any unexpended funds from that fiscal year, and I'm going to say that nothing was spent in this year, and I'm just going to grab a figure here and say there was $100,000 left unspent, and we're going to save that. So that's that you're reporting on the expenditures of the 15-16 state aid grant. And then the next, I also need to report on 14-15 state aid funds that I had left over. And so I will add, this is going to add another report. And I'm going to say that I spent $50,000 on staff, reference staff in this case. And you can put a lot more information in here than what I am putting in here, because we do use this information to go to the legislature to know what the funds were used for. So right now, just bear in mind, I'm just doing this very, very briefly for you. And then we're going to say we spent another $50,000 on new materials, and then this is new items for the collection. And so then we go all the way to the bottom here and save it. And then you will have two of those reports in there. So I will be looking for a report. If you look at last year's application, anywhere that you reported unexpended funds, for whatever number of years you may have reported unexpended funds from, I will be expecting to see a separate Part C for each of those items. Okay? So the summary financial report is sometimes the trickiest. That's where we have to do a lot of our follow-ups. If you have any questions, let me know. And you can see here, I didn't put any numbers in. It's saying, uh-oh, you forgot something. So it's coming back and reminding me. Any questions on the summary financial report? Okay.
We'll give you a minute to make sure we get those questions answered if you're typing.
And then there's one last section here for the application that's due on December 1, and that is the annual statistical report. The annual statistical report does have to be submitted on a separate site, the online reporting site with counting opinions. It is not ready yet. I know Catrice is working on making that ready. As in the past, it'll be ready very soon. And we'll send a message out to let everybody know. Once you've completed that report, you need to check that it's been submitted online, and then you can save it, and you'll then be ready to submit the December 1 documents.
Andy says, is it possible to see the Part C sections already reported in previous years? I'm a new director to this library.
Andy, I will get back with you offline, but yes, we can. It's in the previous grant, and I can tell you what numbers we are looking for, what totals at least, and then I can help you work on that report. So I won't take up everybody's time to do that, but yes, we can do that. If you're not sure, you can log into last year's application, or we can get that to you. And so once you've gotten down here through the December 1 documents, it'll be the same thing again, the review and submit. You would see anything else that needs to be done, if there's any problems, what have you. Again, say I hadn't done these things yet, so it's still looking for that information. So this is what you do to submit the application. Any questions over on the overall application? Have I totally lost everyone there?
Stella Brown says she also needs help with that.
Okay. All right. Making notes of that as well. And I'll probably send you an email, and then we can figure out what we need to do specifically. So.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Jeff says no questions until I begin.
I understand entirely. We tried to make this very similar to what it was in the past, and so it should look familiar. It's just going to be a slightly different process. I would really encourage everyone to start early, just in case you run into any problems or any bugs. We're watching it very closely.
Question, annual plan of service. Can you cover again, please? It can be your budget.
Typically, it's what activities you are going to do during that year based on your long-range plan. So say your long-range plan said, for each of the next 3 years, we're going to do youth services outreach for the next 3 years, and then in year 2, we're going to do something else, in year 3, we're going to do something else. And your annual plan would then say, okay, in this year, which corresponds to our long-range plan, we're going to do A, B, and C. Some folks, when they prepare their budgets, their county or city, have them say what they're going to be doing with that money, and it meshes with their long-range plan and serves as their annual plan of service. It really is organization specific as to what you can use for that. A lot of folks do 2 separate documents. There are some that do a combined document. Is there another question there?
We got a question. Do you know yet when the estimated state aid amounts for fiscal year 17-18 might be available?
At this point, no. What we are telling folks is, as the appropriation was exactly the same as this past year for state aid, I am recommending that you use your grant award from this past year as your estimated state aid amount. As we always tell everybody, the actual amounts will change once we get everybody's certified expenditures in, and you update some of the other data that we use to calculate the grants. But the same amount as last year is probably a good starting point at this point.
And Renee says it can be scary as a new director to fill it out for the first time, but I can guarantee to everyone that they will be fine. No worries, especially when Marian is so helpful.
Thank you, Renee. I appreciate that. Seriously, any questions? The easiest way, frankly, to sometimes get a hold of me, I've been running back and forth for a lot of different things. Just send me an email and I can catch up on those pretty quickly. Email sometimes you might get lucky. I'm not going to guarantee it. Play tag. But I will get back to you as soon as I can with a lot of other projects going on. So,
Mary wants to know when a link will be provided to the recording. We will try to get that uploaded this afternoon, and the follow-up email should go out shortly. Depends on how long the upload takes. And Jackie says we need documentation to that for submitting with our agenda information for the commission.
What was that? I'm not clear on the question.
Grant amounts.
Okay. Send me a message, and I'll be glad to give you that amount as an estimate and explain just what I did. I've been doing that for a lot of folks. So,
Vicki says, tip for annual plan, if you haven't done one before, pull items from your strategic plan that you intend to devote resources towards during the year.
Thank you, Vicki. That's very helpful. Okay, I am going to go over here and show you one other thing. I'm getting to it slightly differently than most folks will do this, but because I can see more than you all can in some cases. There are a lot of organizations here. For example, this is the information that has been loaded for Broward County information. And we have also loaded staff in various places. If you need to add staff to your library to be able to have them work on the grant, you can then go over here, up here to manage staff, and we can, and then you can add a new staff member. an email will go out to that person. They can accept it, and then once they have done that, you can come in here and you can accept by viewing staff requests and accept them. And then once they are listed here, you can then edit them. And from this edit screen, you can then give the person the options of viewer, submit. It will default to a viewer. Submitter is a person who can submit the application. That is typically the library director. It can be other people that have been designated. Grant editor means you can edit and save information on the grant applications. Profile editor is a person that can just update directory information. And organization manager, that is typically the director. And so then you can see the staff, and you can choose if you want them to be visible to the public or not. Okay. Any other questions on your application? Okay, well, I'm going to hang on here for a few more minutes. If anybody wants to think about anything, you can also reach me, email, phone. You know where to find me. Everybody seems to know where to find me, and we will push out that announcement about the upload of the recording to the public library directors list just as soon as we have it available.
Let's see. Jeff says, what about deleting a name?
You can disassociate. Once a name is in the system, they are in the system. You can disassociate them. In other words, if they're no longer with the library, but you can't totally make it leave. We've had some challenges. We've been working back and forth with the developers on some of that.
Todd Humble says, please send an estimate and email for WFPL.
Okay, I know who that is.
To attach with our agenda item for grant agreement execution as well.
Okay.
All right. Natalie says, thank you. Also, happy Book Lovers Day. We're going to stand for a few more minutes to make sure we get all the questions answered. But for those of you that need to go, we'll see you guys on again next time. Okay, we've got another question, so we're going to go ahead to that one. Dan says, we have interlocal agreements with cities. They pay utilities. How do I report this?
Okay, Dan. Realistically, because the cities are paying for them and the money is not coming through your library's budget, you cannot report that as state aid matching. There would have to be some way where, and you can do this, I'm not an accountant, I can't tell you exactly how to do it, but your finance people should be able to help you figure that out. If there's money that's put into your budget and then it's paid for via the transfers to other budget categories or things like that, that's okay. But it has to be paid. The city can't pay for it, and then you count that for matching funds, unfortunately.
And Stella, yes, there's going to be a follow-up email as usual, and we'll be sending you guys links to the recording. So Stella had computer problems and missed part of it. We'll get you the recording.
So did we.
Yeah. So shortly, you guys should be on the lookout for the follow-up email. Any more questions?
Dan, we can talk through that a little bit more offline if we need to.
And another question. The last page of PBC guidelines 2017-2018 packet includes an amendment number 1 with the title Courier Service for the Palm Beach County Library System term contract. Not familiar with this term from previous years.
Eileen, in all honesty, I have no idea. We just uploaded whatever came in last year, so it's possible something got loaded last year that was a little squirrely. I don't know. I really don't know. If that document is not correct, go ahead and delete it and add up another one. The only thing I'm thinking of, would it be something that was the Library Cooperative of the Palm Beaches Would that be part of one of your other agreements for library services that's not part of the county system type stuff? Maybe it was some of that and that might have gotten confused or put in the wrong place. That's the only thing I can come up with.
She's going to call you to discuss.
Okay.
All right, any other questions before we call it a day here today? Thanks for everybody for being on. And stay tuned for a follow-up email. We will get that out to you guys as soon as we can. And we hope to see you online again soon.